Over the last couple of weeks, everybody that knows me knows I was out of work. And I've relied a lot, I feel like, on my faith. I've asked for a lot of prayer. And really, which is difficult, is try to just allow God to work and to not try to intervene and stick my hands all in the middle of it and mess everything up. But I'm going to tell you, and now that I can see the end of the tunnel, and there's not a train at the end of it, I can sit here and tell you that, there are going to be times in your life where you just don't think that God is there, that you're not really sure what He's doing, and you just question things, And so I want to start this morning by asking you, has God ever not answered a prayer for you? Do you feel like that? Now, we all say, well, God answers all prayers. God hears all prayers. I'm talking about how you feel about it. Have you ever felt like God just wasn't there to answer? You didn't find, just nothing happened here, Worse yet, have you ever felt like God has rejected your prayer? That He's just said, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to answer that. I hear it. I'm telling you, I'm not going to answer it. Have you ever experienced that? Have you ever felt that God was cruel to you? That maybe something that you asked for, that maybe the answer you felt like you got was kind of a cruel answer. Let's look at a story where you're going to see some of those things. And then we'll talk about it. This is from Matthew chapter 15, verses 21 through 28. And this is about the faith of a Canaanite woman. If some of your versions may say a Syro-Phoenician woman. In verse 21 it says, "And Jesus went away from there and withdrew to the district of Tyre and Sidon. And behold, a Canaanite woman from that region came out and was crying, 'Have mercy on me, O Lord, Son of David. My daughter is severely oppressed by a demon.' But He did not answer a word. And His disciples came and begged Him, saying, 'Send her away, for she is crying out after us.' He answered, I was sent only to the lost sheep, the house of Israel. But she came and knelt before Him, saying, 'Lord, help me.' And He answered, 'It is not right to take the children's bread and throw it to the dogs.' She said, 'Yes, Lord, but even the dogs eat the crumbs that fall from their master's table.' Then Jesus answered her, 'O woman, great is your faith. Be it done for you as you desire.' And her daughter was healed instantly." Some of today's lessons I want to give credit to for Eric Lyons from Apologetics Press. I'm going to be reading some excerpts from an article that he wrote, giving some really good insight to this passage, this story that we just looked at. We know that God tests us. And I believe that there's times when you say that you think that God's testing us is, He's being cruel to us. Let me read you what this article says. It says, "Testing, proving, or trying someone can be a very effective teaching technique. A teacher might effectively test the honesty of her students by giving them a difficult closed book exam over a chapter they had not yet studied. Those who took their F without cheating would pass the test. Those who opened up their books when the teacher left the room and copied all of the answers word for word would fail the test and learn the valuable lesson that honesty is always in the right policy, even when it might appear that it means failure. Teachers test their students in a variety of ways. Good parents prove their children early on in life in hopes that they learn the virtues of honesty, compassion, and obedience. Coaches may try their players in attempts to instill in them the value of being disciplined in all phases of their game. Bosses test and challenge their employees in hopes of assembling the best team of workers who put out the best products possible. Indeed, mankind has understood the value of tests for a millennia. It should come as no surprise that God has used this same teaching technique various times throughout history. He tested Abraham on Mount Moriah in Genesis 22 and Hebrews 11. And hundreds of years later, he repeatedly tested the Israelites in the wilderness. King David declared how the Lord tested and tried him, while his son Solomon wrote, "The refining pot is for silver and the furnace for gold, but the Lord tests the hearts." That's from Proverbs 17:3. Roughly 1,000 years later, the Apostle Paul declared the same inspired truth. God tests our hearts. Even when God revealed himself in the person of Jesus, he tested man. For example, once when Jesus saw a great multitude coming toward him, he said to Philip, "Where shall we buy bread that these may eat?" John revealed, however, that Jesus asked this question to test Philip. In that passage, the passage that we read on the Canaanite woman, okay, the reader learns that Jesus initially remained silent when a Canaanite woman cried out for mercy. You know, there's so many examples in the scripture where someone comes to Jesus and says, "Can you heal me? Can you heal my son?" Whatever the question might be, whatever the request might be. And Jesus always has an answer for them, one way or another. But in this case, he doesn't say anything. You know what I mean? Have you ever felt like you're praying and he's just not there? It's like you don't feel like there's any response. The second thing is he informed her that he was not sent except to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. We're going to talk about that in just a second. He told her that he was not fitting to take that which was meant for the children and give it to little dogs. In addition, Jesus' disciples urged him to send her away, for she cries out after us. I mean, can you imagine if it was possible for you to stand before Jesus and you asked him for something that you desperately needed? And there would be his disciples saying, tell her to go away. Tell Chris to go away. He's bothering us." That's kind of a hard pill to swallow. You know, some have suggested that in this account that Jesus is actually cruel to this woman. That he shows no love, he shows no mercy on her. Here's something to think about. And I'll be honest, I didn't really think about this till I read this, in the last 5 months of being out of work. We must always remember that God had a plan for Jesus. And Jesus knew the plan, and he fully intended on carrying that plan out. So, in the scripture it tells us, okay, this may sound familiar, to the Jew first and also to the Greek. In order to understand properly Jesus' statement, one must recognize, and we're talking about him saying, you don't give to children, this thing that I have is so great for children. I'm not going to give it to a dog. Okay? In order to understand properly Jesus' statement, one must recognize the divinely appointed order in which the gospel would be spread. Jesus was passing through the land of the Gentiles and was approached by a woman who was not a Jew. while Jesus' message would eventually reach the Gentile world, it is evident from the scriptures that the Jewish nation would be the initial recipient of that message. In his account of Jesus' encounter with the Syrophoenician woman or the Canaanite woman, Matthew recorded that Jesus said, "I was not sent except to the lost sheep of the house of Israel." When Jesus sent the 12 apostles on the limited commission, he told them, "Do not go into the way of the Gentiles, and do not enter a city of the Samaritans, but go rather into the lost sheep of the house of Israel." That's from Matthew 10. Just before Jesus ascended to heaven after his resurrection, he informed the apostles, "And you shall be witnesses to me in Jerusalem, and in all Judea and Samaria, and to the end of the earth." You know, sometimes we read that passage, that verse, and we don't realize that God is laying, that's his plan. That is how the gospel will be distributed, in that order. I mean, everything that God says is important. You know, sometimes, we read a passage and there's things in there that, they just kind of go right past us. They go right over our head. And we don't think much of it. Because it's like, okay, well, who he's talking to is not important. Or where they came from. Or the fact that they're a leper, or whatever it happens to be. It's not, we don't really think about that. Everything that God tells us in his word is important. Everything. There's a reason for it. The sequence of places where the apostles would witness manifest the order in which the gospel would be preached. The Jews first, and then the Gentiles. In addition, in his epistle to the church at Rome, the apostle Paul stated, "For I am not ashamed of the gospel of Christ, for it is the power of God to salvation for everyone who believes, for the Jew first, and also for the Greek." Jesus' statement to the Canaanite woman indicated that the Jewish nation was Jesus' primary target for evangelism during his earthly ministry. Jesus was trying to abide by God's plan. So let me ask you this. Have you, in those situations where you feel like God's not there, that he's not hearing you, maybe that the answer you're getting, and however that comes, that maybe God's being cruel to you, have you maintained your faith through that? Have you maintained your faith? Are you continuing to come and worship God? Are you continuing to fellowship with the believers? Are you continuing to share your faith with people? In other words, does your faith at times become conditional? Where it's like, well, God, if you do this for me, then I'll do this for you. But since you're not answering my prayer, you're not giving me what I want, that I'm not gonna do your work right now. Have you ever thought, when I read this, it was like a light bulb going off. Have you ever thought about where you are in God's plan? I mean, we all talk about, what's God's plan for me? Well, God tells us that to go out and spread his word, spread his love, through the love of Christ, the love that we show other people. People are drawn to us, right? Unconditional love. And then because they're drawn to us, we can share our faith with them. And hopefully they'll want to sit down and hear the gospel, and they'll become a Christian. That's how that works, right? So that is our responsibility. That's what God tells us our responsibility is. So we really don't have to think about that. But where are we in God's divine plan, within his whole plan? Where does Chris need to be right now? Sometimes he just needs us to be faithful and give him time to work out all these other things that we're dealing with. In verse 27, she says, the woman said, "Yes, Lord, yet even the dogs eat the crumbs that fall from their master's table." I'm taken aback by the courage of this woman. She just won't give up. You know, the tenacity that she has. Respectful, but she has tenacity. She is faithful. And it's not like she's bargaining with him. You know, it's not like she's bargaining with him. She's saying, but even the dogs. In other words, you just referred to me as a dog, that's fine. I'll take it. You know, what did we talk about in Bible class today about getting to heaven? I just want to get there. I don't care what, give me a job, give me something to do, I don't care what it is, just I want to get there, right? She says, okay, if I'm a dog, even the dogs get the crumbs off the master's table. And what does he tell her? "Oh woman, great is your faith. Great is your faith. Be it done as you desire," and her daughter was healed. So here's the last question. Think about what just happened here. What did Jesus tell her? He said, "Woman, great is your faith. Be it done as you desire." Are you ready to receive exactly what you've asked for? Are you ready to receive exactly? Because that's what she asked for her daughter to be healed. He said, "I'm going to give you exactly what you asked for." Sometimes I believe I don't give enough thought to what I'm asking for. Because what if he actually gives me exactly what I'm asking for? Am I ready to handle that? Am I ready to take that on? You know, in the last week, and all the things that went on for me searching for a job, and thinking, oh, this is the one. This is the one. Nope, something happened. No, it's this one. This is the one. Wait, nope, it's not that one. It's this one. You know? So what do you pray for? You know, I mean, I really got to a point where I just really didn't want to pray for a specific job. I wanted to just say, God, put me where you need me. But then, you know, I actually kind of struck a little fear in me. Because maybe he would actually put me where he needed me, and that's, who can imagine where that is? Right? Because you know what thought come to my mind is the fisherman. Jesus is walking down the beach, and these guys are mending their nets and you know all that stuff, and he walks by and he says, "Get up and follow me," and they just drop everything. I mean, they didn't know where they were going. What was all this going to be about? I mean, you could just see them like these guys, these few guys, as he goes along, he picks up these disciples, right? I mean, can you just picture them like walking behind him, going, "Can you tell me where we're going? What are we doing? What are we going to do?" I don't know. I just felt like this. I had this huge desire to follow him. I mean, can we really live that way? Can we have that kind of faith? Can we have that kind of faith that says, God, just put me where you need me. I don't care where it is. Because if you say that, you might lose your home. You might lose your family. You might lose your job. Because that's the truth of it. If you really put that kind of faith in it, there's no telling. And I got to tell you, I was afraid for that. But I also know that God's going to take care of me. You know, that last day there where I had a couple of jobs that was being juggled, you know, I sent both my kids a message, you know, and said, hey, now I got this other offer where I really want to go. This is the place I really like. Now, you know what my daughter said, huh? She said, well, maybe that's the devil dangling, you know, something in front of you. Thanks a lot. Appreciate that.
Yeah.
Thank you for the love, my child. But all things work out for the good, right? God's going to take whatever comes your way if you remain faithful. And you know, that's what I resolved in my mind and in my heart, that regardless of where he puts me, that people are going to know over time, they're going to know I'm a Christian. They're going to know it, and because of that, people, just like any other place I've worked, they're going to seek me out. They're going to share their personal problems with me. You know, they're going to ask for prayers, whatever, you know. But that's my life. That's the way I want to live it. But this story here just jumped out at me because of the fact that that Jesus just tends to ignore it, but yet answers our prayer. We have to be ready. We have to be ready. Yeah, first of all, we got to think about what we're asking God for. We have to think about that. And once we do it, we got to be ready to receive 100% of what we've asked for. You know, people say God has a sense of humor. You know, God, just give me a job. I don't care where it is. Next thing you know, you're moving to Saudi Arabia. You know? But if we ask, we have to be ready to receive it and work it. That's where he needs us. We work it. I hope this message has meant something to you this morning. I'm sure that I'm not the only one that has experienced what I've talked about. You know, we all go through it. And you know what? We're not perfect at it. You learn from it. You know, this happens to me again. We don't want to talk about that. But I mean, if it happens again, I could almost vouch to say I'm going to go through the same cycle again. You know, but every time you learn from it, you get better at it. And we learn to trust God more and more. If you have any concerns or if we can pray with you or anything, the invitation is open as we stand and sing.